The line between uniqueness and eccentricity is extremely thin when it comes to K-pop idols' fashion. And it's none other than the idols' stylists who often cross these boundaries. There are times when poor idols are made to look ridiculous instead of impressive, because their own stylists failed to do their only job. In this video, let's take a look at some recent fashion disasters that idols have had to put up with. Number 1. Aespa. With the lofty ambition to take over the US music industry and turn Aespa into the next K-pop queen, SM Entertainment has poured tons of resources into getting the girls entrance tickets to all famous shows in this rigorous market. That's why, most recently, they have had the chance to perform on Jimmy Kimmel Live. And while fans thought this would be a memorable night to treasure for good, they soon realized many things were done at the bare minimum, especially the girls' outfits. Since Aespa was set to follow the high-tech AI and metaverse-related concept, everyone was looking forward to the most flamboyant outfits when they knew the act would perform on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Especially as this is one of the most famous radio shows in the States, the investment into Aespa's visual was thought to be certain, as fans said there was no way SM would let their most invested group look sloppy at such an important event. However, everything was in total contrast to what fans expected. Rather than being the girl stepping out of the metaverse, Aespa was made to look like the girl stepping out of the 2006 era, where dresses with a bunch of bling-bling elements and tangling ruffles were super-duper in vogue. Probably, the stylist did this because the high-teen Y2K trend is taking the world by storm. But considering how they failed to incorporate the modern vibe into such nostalgic designs, Aespa was said to only look peasant and dated in this performance. Some even joke that probably because SM had spent all the dimes on getting Aespa more coverage in the States, they had run out of money for clothes and must have opted for sheen designs at the last minute. The colors theme was also said to be extremely confusing, because there was no connection between the members' images. While Ningning reminded people of unicorns in kid cartoons, Karina gave off sexy vibe with her silky and lace short dress. Then, Winter was made to wear a pastel blue dress that was too plain compared to the other two. But out of the four, Giselle looked the most out of place, as she was the only one to wear an overly discreet dress. To be more specific, Giselle's gray dress was said to be no different from those cheap ones from Shopee, because its form was sloppy and distorted, and the dress was even studded with bling-bling plastic beads that looked very childish. Not only that, the stylist even made that miserable dress look even more 2000s than ever by adding a huge cheesy belt that was a hot item 20 years ago. About Ningning, you remember the video where I talked about how she was so hated to the point that her emblem on Namu Wiki was changed to, "Hey pig, oink oink"? While she has lost lots of weight, her outfit only gave more reasons for people to bash her again because of the sloppy material making her waist bigger, and the tangling ruffles on the skirt shortening her height dramatically. Plus, fans just couldn't figure out the stylist's intentions when suddenly dressing Ningning in a colorful unicorn outfit, while the other members were all wearing neutral colors. Winter didn't suffer as much because her surreal figure did a decent job to save that cheesy ruffled pastel blue dress. However, the overall mix and match was said to be hilarious because no one could understand why such a girly design was paired with fence-net knee-high tights, heavy combat boots, and leather gloves. Karina's outfit was okay, yet considering the cheap faux silk material with wrinkles that couldn't be ironed, and the lace details patched randomly all over the dress, many joked she must have jumped right out of bed 5 minutes before the stage, so there was no time left for her to get changed. Some serious fans even found this dress annoying, accusing the Cordies of making her the target of sexual harassment because, back in May, Ningning was caught up in a similar incident for wearing a similar dress. Overall, Aespa's outfit set at Jimmy Kimmel Live was said to be a disaster of disasters because of its inexplicable ugliness. Number 2. NMIXX. Ironically labeled by some netizens as the most flopped girl group ever of JYP Entertainment, despite being the most all-rounded act regarding all aspects from singing, dancing, to even stage presence, NMIXX has always been a huge question mark to people when it comes to whether the girls could compete in the bloodily competitive race. Unfortunately, with what JYP has just released, many believe the upcoming comeback of NMIXX would be just as confusing as the last one, because they're said to have already failed the very first step of keeping people hyped up about the promotion, choosing good outfits for the girls so they could be visually pleasing and make headlines for the sake of the comeback. Looking at the massive success IVE has just achieved with Afterlike, you can surely tell a thing or two that the neon monogram trend is gradually taking over the K-pop fashion sense. That's why NMIXX Cordies have also hopped on the trend, but probably because of the limited competency and the eccentricity element required to always be present in their concept, the group was said to turn into a real hot mess in their latest group teaser. According to netizens, even the stunning visual of NMIXX couldn't save their fashion disaster. And since there were too many bright colors stuffed into one scene, they were confused as to where to look at. The overall vibe was said to be boorish. And while this trend was wisely used on IVE so they could look as nostalgically fancy as ladies in the 80s, NMIXX's stylists failed miserably, because netizens said they only saw blocks of neon colors randomly patched together probably at the last minute. Even the style of the fits were said to be outdated, and considering how NMIXX belonged to the 4th gen idol, which meant their image is more suitable with something fresh, teeny, and lively, the fact that they were made to wear clothes that only old ladies in the 80s wore also played a huge minus point for the upcoming promotion. The shiny plastic materials were also said to cheapen the image of NMIXX, making them look like an act coming from an extremely low-ranked company. Some even joked that they felt like NMIXX were going to perform at a cheap festival that no one bothers to come to, so they had to dress like colorful clowns to garner attention. The fashion disaster of this comeback also reminded people of the time NMIXX attended Woo Young-mi jewelry event. And as you can expect, the stylist was also said to have ruined everything. Actually, it was so bad that even the visual of Seolyoon couldn't even save a single fit. Fans believed the stylists were using her goddess visual as an excuse to experiment with the most eccentric outfit. Of course, the costumes of the other members weren't that good either, but at least they could still walk in the street in the outfit that day. However, Seolyoon could never afford to do the same because, well, who would ever want to look like a walking red mushroom getting downtown? Especially in the sweating hot weather of May in South Korea. Probably the stylists just wanted to showcase their layering skills and add something fun to the rather safe look. But as some said, they should have spent time improving their competencies before setting the goals so high that they for sure couldn't accomplish them. Besides Seolyoon, Jennie was said to have the second worst outfit, as it made her look bulky and hilarious. Others even said Jennie looked like a female version of this meme guy. Some joked that if she put on a scarf, she would turn into a scouter who is taking the other 6 members on the field trip. Number 3. (G)I-DLE's Yuqi. After (G)I-DLE gave a tribute speech at Korea Broadcasting Awards, Yuqi immediately went viral in her homeland. However, her fans only wish this had never happened because she was trended for a pretty hilarious reason: her odd cutout trousers. On Weibo, the hot search "bottomless pants of Yuqi" was pushed to the top of both entertainment and general trending charts of Weibo, proving the massive attention people gave to her questionable outfit. According to some, this made Yuqi way less presentable for such an important event. And from far away, she was said to look way shorter because of these trousers. Especially when Yuqi stood in front of the purple background, her porcelain white skin made the cutout stand out even more clearly. And some said they felt as if looking at the bare bottoms of someone. Fans also said they couldn't understand why Yuqi's stylist still decided to stick with this outfit, and specifically these trousers. Because Aespa Giselle was once made fun of when wearing them in a group CF. Even without the case of Giselle, the overall reactions toward this design have also been quite negative. But because all feedback fans sent to the Cordies fell on deaf ears, they could only hope Cube Entertainment will soon hire a completely new team to level up (G)I-DLE's image. So, are these outfits indeed disastrous? Or were people just making a huge fuss over nothing? Comment down below to share your thoughts with us. Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe to BeBossTV for more interesting K-pop content. Thank you for watching.